Hello and welcome to some special training in Houdini, an introduction series on the system from side effects, what you can actually do with Houdini, how it works and how everything is getting together inside Houdini. So just some information about Houdini. Houdini is a procedural software package for visual effects, games, animations, and movies. And the special thing about Houdini is actually that you can procedurally build up your systems. Procedurally means that the approach of the construction is made by mathematical systems. And those systems are implemented in nodes, and those nodes are mainly used in Houdini to build up your system. So this series here is pretty much an introduction, how the interface works, how the different buttons work, and so I think we get started now. When you open up Houdini, you have different windows here, like your view, where you can, in the view, pan with the left mouse button, hold it through your scene. You can adjust your rotation here, and this is pretty much where your work is set up. For example, we have a lot of shelf tools up above here with standard primitives like a box, for example, a sphere, tube, torus, and so on. You have modify windows where you can adjust modify applications to your model. And for example, I create a box. To create a box, you click here on the box icon, and then a ghosted view appears, and this ghosted view is pretty much the representation of your model, how it's looking inside your scene. And you have also the coordinates here that are showing where the object is placed into 3D space. So to place this box inside of your scene, just look for a good place and press the left mouse button. So Houdini is evaluating some nodes for you. This is done automatically by Houdini. And as you can see, we have the box here in the scene with some rotation and transformation gizmos where you can rotate your object, where you can position your object, and so on. So to select the object, you have your arrow here, the black arrow. You can click with the left mouse button on your object, or you can also click here in the object level of your scene where the object has been placed and named to box object 1. To rename your object, you can click here under the geometry tab and enter your own name. For example, we call it box, and then you just hit enter, and so the box is already placed in scene. What we can do with the transformation tab is here, for example, the move tool. You can then adjust and move your object into 3D space. You can rotate it to your needs. You can scale the object, so you have the y-axis, the z-axis, and the x-axis, or all axes. can be used here to transform your object. And the important part is that you pretty much can adjust all the settings that we have seen here on this side. We can adjust it also on the object level. So the object level is the place where Houdini is creating the geometry procedurally. So we have, when we go into the geometry object level tab here, we have translate, where you can pretty much click inside and tap the mouse wheel to translate your object into scene. You also can scale it in different directions and different axes. And you do that by hitting some special values or by moving the mouse wheel. So here you can see that we now scale the box in a certain amount, and we can also move it. We can also rotate the box. Can set it also to 90 degree, and this is where you are able to create your object from the create panel here from above. So when your object is created, you are able to dive inside the node here by double clicking on this little shelf here. We have a visibility display tab where you can turn on and off the display for the Houdini object. And we have the green button where you can make the object selectable or not. So to pretty much make it selectable again, you need to click here on the green arrow, and you can make also the object visible or invisible. So when you now double click here on this node, you can see that Houdini already has created a box procedurally for us, and in this lower tab here you're able to choose your primitive type. For example, at the moment we have a Polygon Mesh. We also can make it a polygon. We can make it a NURB or a Bezier or points. Then we just have the points of the creation. You can also adjust the connectivity, where you can choose between different columns, rows, triangles. But for our purpose, we are going to stay in the polygon world. And here we have also size, where you can pretty much change the size. What's also an important hint in the creation is the holding over a certain name here, and it gives you some information which helps you learning Houdini in a better way. So this is the size of the box along X, Y, and Z axis. We have the center here, position of the center of the box, and this is almost available of all nodes and objects in Houdini, and makes the learning very, very good and very interesting. So you can also, like we discussed in the beginning, click here on the size, and then you can drag the mouse wheel and make it even bigger. You can then hold the Alt button, and you can, when you hold Alt, then a hand appears, and you can use the right button to zoom out of your object, and your scene, and the left button to pan around your object. So try this a bit with your mouse or your tablet. And we also have here the possibility to use uniform scale. Uniform scale makes the whole object scaling in a uniform way. So when you click here, you see that you can pretty much adjust the size of the object very uniform. And this is how you can scale or scale down your different types of geometry. So welcome back, and we have created this box here, and we can see that the node has some little points here where when you go on the point above, you see that you have a box bounding source input, and here you have an output. And this is where the magic of Houdini takes place and helps you to build up systems with different parameters, different selections. But this is what we will cover in a different video. This is more like an introduction, and Houdini comes also with a lot of settings for lights. Here we have point lights, area lights, and I will create an area light. So click here on the shelf button, and you can see that we have also already the representation of the light source, and I place it on the left side. You can move it. You can then use here the gizmo to transform and adjust your light source. And in the object level, which is the level where you can control your object, we have different settings here in the light source. At the moment it's the area light. We also can now click and change it to, for example, scene light. And you can also enable it in viewport. Then you see that your graphics card is evaluating the light source in an interesting way. We can change the color of the light by clicking here on the white color space. We have predefined colors here where you can make it green or bluish or even white, black, whatever you like for your scene. You can change the intensity, which is the amount of energy the light is reflecting into your scene environment. And I set it up to 2. You can change the exposure, and as I told you at the beginning, the hovering over the light over the text there is giving you special certain information, like here you can double the energy emitted by the light source, and you can also change here the sampling quality. The sampling quality is the way the light is controlled by hitting an object. And the more values you enter here, for example 5, the finer your end result is on the surface of your object. It's like how many light samples the scene is using to make your object visible in the rendering. And we have here the option to self shadow, so that the light is also shadowing the light source on itself. And we have here the shadow tab, and the shadow tab is pretty much the way the shadows are calculated in the scene at the moment. It's using a ray traced shadow map. You also can say no shadows, or you can also say depth map shadows. With depth map shadows you have pretty much more control over your shadow image quality, like the bias, the softness, and the pixel samples. So you have even more control how the shadow is generated in your scene, and so on. So you always have to keep in mind that different light sources have different effects on your scene geometry. So if, for example, when you have the area light here, it's making more like a soft edge illumination in your scene. And we also will make some camera now in the scene, because at the moment we are here in perspective mode. And to make a camera, you go here on the No Cam tab and hit New Camera. So when this new camera is created, Houdini will make you also a node here where you can make the display flag or make it selectable, like we have learned at the beginning. And you can also zoom in here to your nodes by clicking the right button of your mouse, and you can use the mouse wheel also to zoom in and zoom out of your scene. And when you click your middle mouse button, you then can move your space in the object node level around. And when we look at the camera here, we can see that we have here all the settings from the camera, like the resolution, which is used to render a final image. We can see here the projection. You can choose between orthographic, polar, cylindrical. You also can use a lens shader, but we stay in the perspective view to make our adjustments. We have settings like the focal length. You can choose to change the view of your camera. So we set it back to 50. We have the aperture, where we can change the view also. We have the near clipping and far clipping. This is especially very handy in large scenes where you can pretty much control how much of the image is clipped in the near and far distance. And we can here use a background image when you, for example, have some modeling tasks, or when you have some references you need for your shots. Then you can add a background image here into this tab. And you also can do a crop of your image with the left, right, bottom, top crop. You can also use a crop mask when you want to make artistic and stylized frames of your scene. And this is what makes the camera in Houdini very cool to use. So I click here now, double click on the camera, and you can see that we have here a file node. The file node is used to load Houdini's data which is BGeo. This is the standard file system of Houdini, BGeo. And you can also see that we have here a camera origin where the camera is placed, and we have an X form here where the camera is pretty much centered in space. So as you can see already here, the file node has a connection to the X form here. And this is what makes the power of Houdini in the procedural way very cool. I will show it here on the box. When you click here on the lower output, then you can see that it's pulling a little line. And this line indicates that Houdini is waiting for a new input or output node. And to access all the input and output nodes in Houdini, you press your Tab button on your keyboard. And then you can see that a new menu has opened. And this menu pretty much gives you the ability to enter different nodes from the Houdini world. And for our example, you can, for example, choose your certain node by going inside of the menu. But you also can type here at the search glass your certain node, and I will enter a mountain and hit an mountain node to the box. So as you can see, we now have a connection here. The connection is valid, and this valid connection can be seen when we now click here on the node tree down to the mountain visibility. And as you can see already, the box is starting to deform because mountain is a deformer node. It deforms your geometry and objects in a certain way of a noise type. So we have here the simplex noise. We have a lot of noise we can use here. For example, alligator or periodic flow. It's a lot of noise types that help you to deform your object in a very interesting way. We then can change here the octaves, the roughness, and as you can see, the whole box is starting to twist and change around. I also press the Alt button in the viewport here and center it around. And when we go back to the box setting here, we also can make the box a polygon mesh. And with the polygon mesh, we have the ability to define the axis divisions, how many divisions are made to create the box. And I set it to 10 in every axis. And immediately you can see that Houdini is evaluating this scene here with the noise on the box with the mountain node, and we can change the height of the deformation, the size, can make it taller or smaller. And this is pretty much what makes the core usability of Houdini, the node workflow inside of your object level. So it will take some time and effort to discover all the nodes of Houdini, and the cool thing in Houdini is that a lot of pre-programmed systems comes already in the shelf tool here. When you go to the collision tab, you have here static object deforming, you have the particles, you have the grains, the new vellum solver, and all this stuff is already pre-programmed by Houdini and helps you creating your scenes procedurally in a fast and efficient way. And I will now end this tutorial and will continue in the next lesson with some render settings and how you can render this object. And I hope you learned something here in this introduction series. I will continue this week by week and release a new video. So don't be afraid to learn Houdini. It's a very powerful package. It brings everything you need to make visual effects of the next generation. And thanks for watching. And see you soon. Have a great day.